Thank you for joining us on this Missions Monday and tuning in for part 4 of how to develop a biblical philosophy of missions. We hope you enjoy.
I want to turn it over to you here, Tom, and it's 2 questions about the church, so I'll just put these together. One is, do you have a home church, and how do those elders feel about you becoming a missionary? And then the next one, what has your home church done to approve and or test your calling to ministry? So when I first went out, it was a joy to me to say to the supporting churches, hey, this is the support of my sending church. They're behind me, not only behind me emotionally, but financially as well. That was a real boon for me. Could you talk about that a little bit? Why that's so important to have the home church?
It is absolutely paramount that a missionary is connected to a local church, to their home church, that they're not shopping around, hopping around, because that shows 2 things: that they understand the importance of being a part of a local body of Christ, that they're not forsaking the assembling of their own body. And there's also understanding that that church would recognize them. I'm going to tie both questions together with my answer, so it's a multiple answer to the question. And that in going to show if they're connected with that local church and they've been validated by that church, the leadership is behind them, then they are also going to be able to have that full support in sending. It might not be financial, because it could be a small church, or might be a small financial, but at least that's that philosophical. They're behind you, they're praying for you, they are recognizing God's calling in their life, and they're going to have that prayer support to go behind them. That shows us as a church that's looking for that missionary that they understand the importance of the church, that they're that connection. Because if they're not, then that pretty much, end of discussion. And then secondly, they might be connected to a local church, but then it comes up, my elders aren't really in favor. And then that raises that amber flag that might raise a red flag that might be a quick disqualification. But it's for those people that are involved in that local church. And in ministry, we look for that connection.
So talk about Acts 13:1, before those missionaries being sent out of Antioch. We're told they were actually in that local church for a year. Mm-hmm. Why is that significant, and how can that be applied today with local churches and missionaries?
Oh, great question. That, first of all, that stops the idea of church hopping. If you ask somebody where their local church, well, I've been to this church, that church, and I guess I could call this my home church. Being in a local church and being involved in ministry in a local church is again foundational for the validation of the work of a missionary, whatever capacity they've been serving, as opposed to just going out. So in Acts 13, they were in there for a year. They were active, they were involved, they were part of the body.
They could see if they could preach, they could see if they could evangelize.
Yeah. And so that's going to be the testing field, or the testing ground, if you will. If they're not going to make it in the local church, they pretty much aren't going to make it out in the field.
Okay, so that's calling we just covered. We're going to go next to character, and I come back to Matt and I say, Matt, you are out of your mind. You are making these standards way too high. Here's the first sentence. We would never hire as staff a person who is not biblically qualified and marked by a clear passion for personal godliness. And so it must be with all our missionary partners. Surely that you're making the standards too high here, Matt. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, no, the beauty in this is I didn't make the standards. God did. Right? These are his standards. We're not making this up. We're not adding to anything. We're just simply seeking to be faithful to what the Lord has declared. 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1 are very clear, right? That reality of the godly character. It all begins there. That's not the end, but it is the beginning. If the character is not there, then the partnership cannot be there. God only uses qualified men, and we only want to partner with those whom the Lord is using. We only want to go where God is, i.e., where His word is being obeyed, submitted to, and followed, because that's the power of the gospel, is in submission to the scriptures. And so we want to find men who have submitted their lives to the word of God, and that's what the Bible says, undeniably, unquestionably. And so these aren't our ideas, these are God's. We're just trying to be faithful to that. That's all it is.
So beyond the PowerPoint presentation that the missionary shows on Sunday night, and beyond the sermon that he may preach, in order to really understand his character, you're saying you're going to have to ask these guys. Of course, you're going to have to see it as well, but you're going to have to ask these kind of questions.
Mick Chain said it best, and I don't think I could improve on anything that he said when he told one of his young apprentices, "To the level of your holiness will be to the level of your usefulness." And that truth cannot be overstated. And that's how it goes. And so that's why this, to me, is one of the paramount questions that must be asked of all men who are serving in ministry in varying degrees, whether it's deacons, elders, missionaries, pastors, whatever, because the Bible lines that out very clearly, whether it's the qualifications for a deacon, qualifications for an elder, i.e. pastor, missionary. So yeah, without question.
And you would say there needs to be character not only with the missionary himself, also with his family. I'm just going to read one of these questions. Help us understand why you put this in here. The question is, what does it mean to manage your household well with all dignity, keeping your children submissive? Is that true of you? How would your wife and children answer that?
Yeah, so the home, this is how God designed it. The home is the proving ground for the church. The home, you could say it in the missionary context, the home is the proving ground for the mission field. Long before a man is sent overseas, he has to be a leader in his home. He has to be leading his wife well. He has to be leading his children well. His children have to be seen as following him, obeying him. His wife has to be seen as growing, being nurtured by him. If he can't nurture his wife, why would he ever think he could nurture a village or sheep in a church that he's going to plant? If he can't nurture and lead and protect and provide for his children, why would he ever think he would be able to do that in a foreign field, in a different language, in a different context, in a different culture? And so the Bible, i.e. God himself, designed this paradigm where the home is the proving ground. And that's what Titus and Timothy make really clear. That's why this comes straight out of 1 Timothy 3. And that's what the text says. If the man can't lead in his home, why would we ever think he would lead in the church? And it would be the same for the missionary. And so that's why we want to know, is this man leading in his home? How does his wife respond to his leadership? How does his children respond to his teaching? How does his whole family respond to his life? And then how would they respond? And I do this, Tom can reiterate this, as we evaluate each other annually. And I will go to the elders and I sit down and I ask many of these same questions of them annually. And they do the same to me. I asked them to do that when I came on as pastor. I only asked them for a few things. And one of them was that you sit down with my wife every single year and you ask her how I'm doing in the home. You go to her. You can ask me anything. I'm an open book. I hide nothing. But I want you to go to her because she will tell you what I'm like when you're not around. And you ask her, and then you can ask my children. They will tell you, because that's the greatest way to evaluate me.
So that's a far cry from the prosperity line that says, touch not the Lord's anointed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a far cry. Yeah, a tremendous vast chasm between the two, right?
Which is the idea of, I'm up here, don't rebuke me, don't say anything against me. You're actually saying, please rebuke me. Yes. Please analyze me.
I absolutely, because I want to grow, right? I want to please the Lord, and I want the Lord's pleasure on me, right? And so whatever I've got to do to put myself in that, under that, submit to that, that's what I want.
On this point of family and the examples that are produced there, I'm just thinking of the conversation we were having yesterday around the dinner table, and I asked you men what has been great to see coming here. And Mr. Fox, I loved the way you put it when speaking about the Schleierlein family, because in one sense, with visitors coming, one could have a heavy hand enough that they get their house orderly for a few days. But Mr. Fox, you commented on how you see the love and the respect and the joy in the home. And I've gotten to see that over months. And even when Boti Paul isn't around, the way his children tell stories of him like he's this legendary hero because they love him. But at the same time, they really respect him. And when he speaks, it's yes, sir, not in a dictator type way. There's a control over the home, but a love and a joy.
I'd like to speak on that too, is because what Matt was saying was that when we're speaking to the man, also when we have the missionary couple come, we have the opportunity to speak to the wife. Like we speak with Amy about how's Matt doing, so we can look at the wife and saying, so how is your husband doing? Because that's very telling. And we've often traveled, we visit every missionary. We've been in every missionary's home, and I can tell you that it doesn't take very long inside that house to tell whether the house is in order or not. And we can see that. And so you just have that sense of, taking a look at, and so that's why we developed this, because we did have some missionaries that didn't go through this process, so it wasn't going that great. And so we're able to help them and nurture them. Now that we have this policy in place, we can now take this missions philosophy and vet any of those that, no, you need some time to work on your home before you get out to the field.
Okay, so just to bring this as a review, we're talking about how to analyze the prospective missionary. We looked at calling, then we looked at character. The third item would be conviction. That comes more so to the doctrine. And again, you're not pulling back any punches here. This is like a little mini ordination service where you're testing their theological chops, not just on missionary questions, but do they understand their Bible? I'll just give a couple examples here. Look up Philippians 2, 12 through 13 and explain this passage as it relates to both salvation and sanctification, or look up 2 Timothy 3, 15 through 17 and explain the meaning of this passage and how that gets applied in your ministry. Why would you put questions like this?
Yeah, well, one, obviously Philippians 2, 12 to 13 is going to help us really, how they answer that is going to really help us understand, do they understand the gospel? And do they understand the reality of the progressive nature of salvation, i.e. sanctification, right? The ongoing saving work in the life of the believer. And then do they understand, and this is the big one for me, do they understand sovereign salvation? Do they understand that? Because I need to know that if we're going to partner with them. Do they have an understanding of sovereign grace or sovereign salvation?
A doctrine that I would say has kept me on the field.
Absolutely.
I could not deal with the pressure, with the challenges on the mission field and what we would see physically as small numbers. I could not deal with the pressure thinking if I had just given one more illustration, it would have changed everything, knowing that God sovereignly saves.
Absolutely. That's the same thing with me as a pastor. That's what keeps me in the ministry. Or I would even say as a believer, that's what keeps me on the narrow road, right? Is the reality that God is sovereign over all of this, and even over my sanctification. As I am striving for holiness, He is working it out in my life. And that gives me hope and encouragement and perseverance and all these things. That's a non-negotiable. If he goes off the road there, then that's it. We can't partner with him for various reasons, obviously. And then the next one would be just as important, 2 Timothy 3, 15 and 17. This helps us understand, does he have a core conviction regarding the sufficiency of Scripture? Like if he doesn't have that, then obviously we can't partner with them, because the sufficiency of Scripture is where all of this comes out. And it can't be in the sufficiency of his ability. It can't be in the sufficiency of his calling. It can't be in the sufficiency of himself. It can't be in the sufficiency of anything other than it is this book and this book alone. This is what I trust. This is what I preach. This is where I rest. And my success is not found in numbers. My success is not found in conversions. My success is found in one thing and one thing alone. Do I follow and proclaim and live by the book? And that question will bring that out. How he answers that will help us see, is this part of his life, or is this just an admission? Is he just saying the right things? I'll be able to tell in how he answers that, or some follow-up questions.
Okay, so help me with this conundrum I have. Here you put an emphasis on theology and on conviction and the importance of knowing our Bible, and even later on in the document talking about formal theological training and the importance of learning the languages, etc. So we take that side and we say, yes, good. But then I find some turmoil in my soul when I look at the landscape in seminaries in the United States primarily. I see the dipping numbers. I see the paltry line of people who want to go to the mission field, but I see more of an interest maybe in academia. I see more of an interest in maybe writing in the clean halls of the seminaries or the ecclesiastical establishments. And I sometimes think much learning has made you mad, yes. Right? And I often think, there's a sense in which, young man, if you stay in the States for that PhD, you're never going to get to the mission field. Yeah. Because the longer you stay there and the deeper those roots go, and the more you learn Hebrew and the more you learn Greek, and I hope you know from me, I have an appreciation from those, but the more you learn those, the less you're going to say, am I really going to go on a houseboat in the Amazon River and sit across from an old lady who has no idea? I can never use my Hebrew and Greek with her in a sense. I can't talk about the hypostatic union and look at all of these gifts the Lord has given me. It would be a waste if I go to the Amazon River. So I'm just going to stay in the States. How do you balance that?
Yeah. So, in my native tongue of West Virginia, we would call that having a fat head and a frozen heart, right? And that's the dilemma of academics and formal training that you face, and it's a dangerous road that you have to. It's a gauntlet you have to run as you're filling your head with truth, that your heart isn't becoming hardened to the reality. And that's where ministry is always about people and keeping it that. That's why all of these questions and all of these categories really are for us as we're evaluating, discerning, does this person get it at the real life level, or is it just an esoteric endeavor? And that's where every one of these questions really bring us to this point. Is this something the man wants to do? Is it an idea he thinks he can do? Or is this the man? This is what we're trying to discern. Is this who he is? Is he a missionary? Not will he be a missionary? Is he already a missionary? And that's where the partnership with the local church, I wouldn't partner with somebody at this level if they're not already doing it. If you're not already shepherding, then I'm not going to partner with you with the hopes that maybe when you get to Africa, you'll start shepherding. So that answers that question of, okay, he's been to seminary. How is he using that on the practical, personal sheep people level? Is he shepherding? Is he counseling? Is he ministering? Is he discipling? Who are you discipling? What kind of impact are you having? How are you evangelizing? Are you on the streets? What kind of compassion do you have for the lost? What kind of compassion do you have for the hurting? I want to hear that. Tell me a story. Share that with me. And if you don't have that, then maybe you're not ready. Maybe it's not time yet. You got to go develop that. That's where that back to that question of the local church comes up. I want to see this man doing it now, not potentially he'll do it later. No, he has to do it now. In our church, even picking deacons and elders, we don't pick men that we think might be a good elder or might be a good deacon. We pick men who are already eldering, already deaconing. They just lack the title. And that's the way we go. And that's what we're looking for in missionaries. Are they doing missions already? They're just not in that context yet of that foreign culture. And that ends kind of that dilemma that you're talking about.
So here we have this standard of this is what we expect of our elders, for example. And then you have, let's say, young men, and you say, man, I'm not even close to that. Here's their standard. It's whatever, an A- or above, that you have to meet these standards. And so we have something called interns, right? Where we say, you're not an elder yet, you're not a pastor yet, but you have the desire, you're just not reached those levels yet. So we'll kind of shepherd you, we'll have you around the elders, the pastors. How would that work for missionaries? I mean, is there such a thing as like an intern on the mission field? You have interns when it comes to pastors, but there's interns perhaps for missionaries. What does that look like? Should there be interns for missionaries? And then what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, thanks for asking. I think there should be interns for all the above, right? Internship, I think, is just a glorified title for discipleship, right? Where you're pouring into and evaluating all at the same time, where you're shaping and molding the man for the mission of the man. We just finished a 2-year internship with a missionary a national from Lithuania, who we just sent back to Lithuania to really begin his lifelong ministry with his family. And it was such a blessing to pour into him day and night, and to shape and mold that which was already there, but to kind of finish off the edges and to further evaluate him. That gave us 2 years to walk with him and see all these things that are in this document that we could identify and even prep him for. And we pour into him even more doctrine and more understanding and more methodology and more philosophy. And he listens well. And now he's off in Lithuania and running well. And we're excited about that.
You know, one of the purposes of our Tiani internship program, which we call TIPS, is just to help the local church who might have a young man and they say, we're not quite sure if they have the potential to learn a foreign language, or if they can interact with a different culture, or if their gifts are going to kind of translate to a different place. So let's send that person for 3 months to a missionary that we can trust. Let's see what their proficiency might be in learning a language. Let's see if they even have a desire to do that. Maybe at the end of 3 months, they'll discover, you know what, I thought this was for me, but I've discovered this just doesn't fit my gifts. Hey, better to do that after a 3-month internship, right? Than spending 3 years raising support. Then you get to Japan and you find out, I am not cut out for this. I think that's one of the benefits.
Yeah, we're doing that right now with another intern we have, and we've got him for a year. And part of that internship, he's a younger guy than the other intern we just finished, and we're in that, and we're literally told him this is going to help us discern whether this is really right for you, and it's going to help you discern that. And so the same exact thing.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up. I mean, we could go on about this for forever, but any closing comments that you want to give about the importance of a local church putting together a missions philosophy for the good, for the sake of their local church, and also for the sake of worldwide evangelism?
Yeah, I would say start with something. Don't endeavor to put the perfect document together. Just start working it out. Get something on paper. Get a paragraph, get 2, get some questions. Start with your Bible. Get it started. It's a living document. It's a growing document. Let it grow with you. Don't try to sit down and write the perfect thesis, so to speak. Just get it down there, search the scriptures, and then let it grow with you. Let it grow with your elders. Work together on this. Let it grow with your church. Keep developing it. And then I would say aim for 2 things. Clarity, so you want to be clear. Strive for that in the questions and what is written. And then obviously strive for accuracy with the scriptures. Strive for make those 2 your goals, And we want to be clear about what the Bible says about missions. We want to be clear about who we are in our perspective, i.e. the church, and what we view missions to be. We want to be clear on what we're looking for. And then you want to be obviously accurate. You want to be compatible. You want to be submissive to the scriptures. That's huge. And then as you send that out, you will be encouraged by how the Lord will provide. Don't be worried about the standards too high. Many people told us that. Many people said that if we did this, we would not be able to find any missionaries. And we understood we narrowed the scope really small, but the Bible does. And we just trusted the Lord, and now we've got a number of phenomenal missionaries the Lord has brought to us that literally is of the kindred spirit that we are, and they could tell because of what we've written.
For those who may want to see this document as an example, is it available anywhere online?
Yeah, well, it's not available online, but you can go to belcroftbiblechurch.org and find us in the contact and ask for it. And
you'd be happy.
We would. It would be directed to myself because I'm the head of the missions team, and so then you just ask for. We can send a PDF of that. We'd love to share it. And I might just piggyback on what Matt said, is that if for any pastor that might be listening, or anybody that's on a mission board or a missions committee that might be looking at missionaries, to take a look at putting together a document so that you are looking at a good theological foundation, everything that we just talked about in the podcast, as opposed to just relationships. Because there's people, the children that grow up in the church, and you say they're well-meaning and they want to go out. No, that would be nice to send them as a missionary, but they need to be vetted well. Because it would be better to keep them home and put them in, get them connected with the church, make sure they have a theological foundation before sending them out.
Okay. Boti Paul, I'm not sure how to do this one. Do I say what a treat, Mufundhisi?
There you go. Mufundhisi, that's the plural of Mufundhisi. So that's pastors rather than pastor.
Okay, there we go. What a treat, Mufundhisi. To our audience, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate it and subscribe to keep posted with more upcoming content. Feel free to share this episode with someone who might find it interesting, and submit any questions you may want answered in a future podcast. You can email those questions to paulschleiline@gmail.com. You can visit betweentwocultures.com for other resources like this. I'm your host, Yamikani Katunga. Until next time, that's it from Missionary Minds.